Hello and welcome. This is Galit, your stars within. Today I want to talk about our eclipse cycle. It's starting much earlier than usual. Our lunar and solar eclipses are in September 2025. And what's really interesting about this cycle is I want to actually pull us back to the new moon coming up, August 22nd, 23rd, is at 0 Virgo. So we're actually going to have two new moons in Virgo. We have the 0 Virgo, then we'll have the full moon in the Pisces Virgo axis at 15 Pisces, and then we'll have the next new moon, which is the solar eclipse in September 21st. That's at 29 degrees Virgo. So what I'm really wanting to just point out is that we have two new moons, August 23rd and September 21st at the 0 and then the 29, the first and the last degree of Virgo. So that's really telling us that this eclipse cycle is encompassing the Virgo, we know it's the Virgo-Pisces axis, but really understanding that it's really being underlined by having two new moons, one in the 0 and one in the 29. It's a pretty big deal. Now, our eclipses, both in September, the 7th and the 21st. On September 7th, we have the total lunar eclipse. We don't always have a total lunar eclipse. It's a very powerful energy. It's at 15 Pisces, so full moon, sun and moon are in opposite. So the moon is at 15 Pisces because the sun is at 15 Virgo, right? So this is the Pisces-Virgo axis. And we want to understand the dynamic of the Pisces-Virgo axis. I see these things as a whole. They're two ends of a spectrum. It's very important to understand the spectrum, right? Opposites or duality merge in the understanding of a spectrum. So Pisces, Pisces is that which sort of stays connected with that divine movement, that divine will, just floats around and, lands in its destiny. That's where I'm supposed to be. The connection with Neptune lends itself to music, but also disillusionment. The 12th house, jails, and ashrams. So there's this wide range of, you can go to the divine on your knees in jail. You can go to the divine on your knees in an ashram, right? Or a sacred place. This spans. There's the true awakening and the false awakening. There's, enlightenment and drug addiction. And we often blame the Piscean or Neptunian energy as being disillusioning. But it's really our discernment, our discrimination that allows us to not see it properly. And that lets us say, I think it's going to be fine. And then later we go, I really kind of knew, like deep down, I kind of knew. That was our own choice to not pay attention to our inner discernment. And that discernment comes from purity. This is sixth chakra, and it comes from purity. The more that the mind is purified, the more one can see clearly into the state of reality and what is temporary or illusory and what is eternal, what is the real fabric behind it. And so the Virgo energy comes into play here. Virgo, known for being sort of critical or uptight and anxious, this is true. But that energy is there because they have a natural sense of the purity. Sometimes a person will have a lot of stress, feeling like things should be done a certain way. Now, it can be a misuse of the Virgo energy. Alphabetizing the soup cans aren't going to do much for us spiritually, right? So that would be a misuse of the spiritual energy or of the Virgo energy. But any type of group of people who are trying to dedicate their lives to being in and bringing through that divine energy, there's usually a set of rigid protocols. There's waking up at this time, doing this prayer in this direction, eating this way, each thing in this direction. Everything has a very specific way. And that's that Virgo energy. that to more clearly, more authentically, to be transparent enough that that light of divinity can flow through clearly, one must maintain certain standards of purity, devotion, habits. And that's the energy of Virgo. And so that's what our theme, our overarching theme is going to be about, this axis between the divine encounter, and the experience of divine bliss, but also our own habits, our own purity, um, and how these disciplines and structures create the proper geometry for this to flow as accurately, as truthfully, as uh, unencumbered, not colored with your own ego or thoughts or wants. So the first eclipse, is a total lunar eclipse at 15 Pisces. So anything that affects 15 Pisces and 15 Virgo is also going to be in square with the 15 degree of Gemini and Sagittarius. Those are the mutables. It's worth noting that the nodes are at 18 Pisces. Well, the north node's at 18 Pisces, so the south node is at 18 Virgo with the sun. And so this is going to bring with this total eclipse, past life and ancestral themes will be arising. The purpose of this life, the barriers or the limitations, the karmas that may be in the way of really fulfilling that purpose. And some of that may be, that purpose is in that Piscean energy. And where am I not bringing the disciplines of the Virgo energy to meet it? Issues of ego may arise where, we don't want to do certain patterns, or we want to bring the divine, we want to have that connection with the divine, but we don't want to give up our opinions or ways that we think it ought to be. And so that energy flows, but it gets colored through the ego. And then we're, spreading that without realizing the distortion we're causing. So at this time, in around the September 7th eclipse, you may not realize why you're being drawn in the ways that you're being drawn. Like you might be pulled to certain things, and just sort of like trust it. Let yourself be drawn as you're drawn. These have spiritually important reasons. Anything like this, a major eclipse, a total lunar eclipse, we don't always have a total lunar eclipse, with the nodes, which is where our eclipses are. This is a major portal or shifting period. Some doors will open and some doors will close. Some of that will be based on what we've done so far. So, there's moments in time where we can take these cosmic leaps, leaving behind what could be lifetimes of work. And eclipses are those types of moments because they always involve the nodes. So some will be successful in stepping up to what they've been asked, and some will not. That's always the way of life. So it's our job to say, I want to do the work so that I can have the highest possible outcome or the highest possible leap in these important moments. The trajectory or the path that you're on can go through a major recalibrating period. This can be based on the past, this can be based on karma, but always I want to remind you that this present moment, the power of consciousness, the power of now, the power of choice is always the most powerful. So what we're doing now as we purify body and mind and bring our hearts to devotion can shift the trajectory, especially at significant moments like this. So this is an opportunity. It will probably be a bit chaotic as the nodes are, and as eclipses therefore are, but it is an opportunity both individually and collectively. It can be a major point. We can disappoint ourselves at major points, and we can also live up to our highest capabilities. We have a number of meetings of planets around that 1 degree, which I think is interesting during this eclipse. The eclipse is at 15, but Pluto's at retro at 1 Aquarius, Neptune's retro at 1 Aries. Saturn is right next to Neptune. I think that's worth noting as well. So the discipline with the spirit is also represented here with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, but he will have retro technically back to 29 at this point. Uranus is also retro at the 1 Gemini, which is, in the mutable signs, but more interacting with the previous new moon the 0 degree Virgo in August. But it's just relevant to reflect on how many planets are just entering new energies. They've entered them in the last number of months, and now they're retrograding and they'll be coming back. But there's this newness, this new energy that many of the planets are bringing. So collectively, we're moving into just a very new time period. And it will take some time, some years, to actually realize what all this is about. Jupiter is moving through the degrees that it's going to retro through. So this is called the shadow period. So he's hit the 15 Cancer, and around this September 7th eclipse, he'll be at 18. He'll go as far as 25 before we call it retro, but that's the shadow period. He will then retro through those degrees and then come back in the second shadow period. So we're beginning to find out what Jupiter, the guru, the teacher, what he is going to teach us in this deep dive of a retrograde. Moving to that following new moon, the second eclipse, which is the solar eclipse. This is on September 21st. So this is with the autumn equinox, which is on the 22nd. The degree is the 28th and 29th degree of Virgo. The eclipse, I think, is at the 28th, but the new moon's at the 29th. This is a critical degree. And I think it's worth noting that the new moon is going to be at 29 Virgo, which is going to be opposite that Saturn that retroed to 29 Pisces, right? So Saturn entered Aries, but then came back, and he's still going to backtrack through some of these last degrees of Pisces. So he may have retroed as far back as 28 by this point. But so the new moon and the Saturn are around that 28, 29 degree together with Neptune at the 0 Aries. So it's all right there. This is a critical degree. Neptune will come this far back, but not until October, I believe. So this point, the final point of Pisces into the new cycle of Aries. Aries is the beginning, right? The 29th degree of Pisces is the last degree of the last sign. And so Saturn, karma, lessons, what needs to be learned, what needs to be paid, is sitting right there with this new moon. And so this is going to be, there's a heavy emphasis here on like what needs to be moved through. These are blessings. These are gifts. They will unfold over the next 6 months. Even the difficult things, they're a gift. They're an opportunity to relieve ourselves of these karmas, to set those energies right, and to move our lives forward beyond these points. So this new moon, it's a partial solar eclipse. September 21st has a strong karmic lessons undertone. And so, embracing it in that light, what is it here to teach me? What is it showing me? And even though it's a lot of endings, we've got it at the 29 of Virgo, a lot of completion or finality. We need to get the lesson. We do need to get the lesson to start new, right? Endings are also beginnings. And so new moon is that seed planting. We may not see the sprout of that seed at this time. That may be some time away. But this is a time for some completions, some endings, some finality, some releasing of karma, being done with it. And in that same energy of the end is within it the seed. As the fruit releases into the earth and goes back to where it came, in that same moment of ending as a fruit, those seeds are released into the soil for the future season. And so those seeds will be planted. It's also worth noting that Mars is at the 29 Libra at this time, so it's just also standing at a critical degree. And Mars is that personal power, that will. What are we doing? Where are we going? What are we going to do with this collective karma? There's a lot of collective karma. There's been a lot of hate. There's been a lot of hurt. There's been a lot of ways that humans have not seen you are also me. And so, love, compassion, our own awakening is some of the strongest, most complex geometry, which can heal this the fastest, where we can, rise to the occasion of this karma in the highest possible way, healing it more quickly rather than in the dredges of back and forth and the eye for an eye kind of thing. This takes a very long time. It's fruit and seeds and fruit and seeds and fruit and seeds. It's sort of never ending. At some point, we have to come in and use this love, and we need to heal and clean, what has grown in this garden through our evolution, before we could come to a state of realization of the humanity, of the oneness in one another. As we reach that understanding, we need to go backwards and heal collectively this karma. So there may be challenges faced. The best things that I can recommend for the eclipse time period is to go into it in the highest possible way, meaning to engage in purification, um, engage in activities which bring the body, mind, and heart to the contemplation of that divine energy, of devotion, bringing ourselves to the highest point that we can as we enter these energies, and allow them to move as they need to move for our highest good. I hope that's helpful. Please feel free to pay attention to my website, Your Stars Within. You can schedule an astrology reading if you want to look at how this particularly impacts you. But anybody who has planets and points from the beginning to the end of the mutables are going to be very affected by this. And also, I offer chakra purification retreats, and I hope that you will join me in some of those in the future. All right. Thank you. I hope this was helpful. Bye.